On Tuesday, the 8th of October 2019, the Initiative Party, a newly formed and registered national UK political party, held its first public meeting where they requested input and feedback from the people in attendance. Captain Scarlett was on the scene and interviewed two of the key members to find out what the intentions of the party are and a bit of the background information of its founding member.
Okay, so it was never about politics for me. What it was about is making things happen and not being a victim of the system. And that was where, for me, I mean, over the years, I had a few scenarios that arose, scenarios that I was powerless in. And the reason why I was powerless is because that's the system and we're not a part of it. So as a result, we don't really have any say in what happens within the system. And that was where the idea was born for me. I mean, I sat down, I said, right, the only way we're going to change anything is if we're looking at it from at the table, if we're looking at it from a position of we're in here and we're in a position, we're voting on these things, we're putting these policies forward. And other than that, we're passengers in the car as opposed to being able to drive the car. So the thought process for me was we need to change the dynamic of how this car works.
We're a forgotten people and we have to talk about what we want. So the first thing is our line is we're all taking the initiative together. We haven't had a political vehicle that connects us as a people and connects us to the wider political landscape in terms of parity. We don't have parity. So now if you decide that you're a nation and you're going to have engagement on, what's the term? On a diplomatic level, you have to have a vehicle so that people respect you and look at you and say that is where we deal with you in terms of parity. We've never had that. And we're 70 years too late based on the Windrush generation coming here and en masse and not being able to represent themselves in the political landscape.
Conservative, they could kind of represent me, I suppose, but really they represent rich white people and I'm not that. And then you've got Labour, they represent poorer people and I wasn't really that either. So really, I was kind of a political nomad.
None of those four parties have managed to advance us from being at the bottom of every measurable metric, being economic, employment, educationally, and criminally. So since we're at the bottom of every measurable metric, we are now aware that we are by ourselves, and it's incumbent upon us to now create a solution as opposed to complaining to those who failed in our 70 years en masse in the United Kingdom to provide a solution for us.
So, and then I thought, you know what, do what you generally do. Don't sit and beg for a seat at their table, create your own table. And that was where the Initiative Party was born. So I went down, I spoke to a few of my friends that I knew about politics, and I said, how do we set up a political party? And then that was effectively where it was. We spent 2 years in the background, sorting out paperwork, constitution, manifesto, registering with the party, the political party, I can't remember, the electoral commissions and so on and so forth. And it was all with a view to get into this place and to literally have a seat at the table, but without having to beg for the seat at the table. And ultimately be in a position where we can impact and influence our communities.
Since we have a political vehicle and the preeminent expertise from our community, it is now incumbent upon us to move forward and provide solutions for the masses. Our OBEs, our MBEs, our doctors who've been in this room this evening are creating solutions that will serve us for perpetuity.
The core of what we do is based in business because I understand business. So effectively for me, our essence is business and we're about community, business. We'll be dealing with things like setting up grants for people, assisting people who want to open business, doing courses about property development, property investment, and just basically empowering people and teaching them how to make a better life for themselves. We're not about a hand up, we're about a hand up.
We're told we're ethnic minorities. So I'm going to mention a couple of boroughs. Croydon, Lambeth, Lewisham, Southwark, Brent, Haringey, Hackney. If you think you are numerically superior in any of those boroughs, understand and think critically about your ability to change the makeup of your council.
You've got MPs like Labour, for argument's sake, they're giving advice on areas like Lewisham and Catford. They've never even been there, so how can they possibly affect or impact or even care about what happens within the community? So the thought process was, let's get ourselves a seat at our own table. Like we're feeding, our taxpayers are paying for this stuff. but yet we've got no say on what happens with this stuff. And that was why, for me, it was important that we do our bit. And it was just, you know what, let's do it, build it, and they'll come. Like, let's set it up. And it wasn't. The Initiative Party isn't a black party, as I said earlier. It's a party that facilitates and emphasises with black people, and we're here to make things happen.
And this is the first of many evenings and the first of many days building with the preeminent expertise in every single area: housing, health, media, culture, sport, education, you name it, they are there.
As a political student myself, I mean, looking into this, it's definitely something that I would say that we needed as a community, a political party. I mean, and especially around the local politics and council. That is where a lot of the real decisions get made.
That affect us.
100%, that especially affect us. And those boroughs that you mentioned, especially, are quite dominated by our communities. What is the strategy of the Initiative Party about getting elected to council in those areas? I mean, is that being set up?
It's absolutely being set up. And what we are doing now is looking to the London Assembly 2020 and the local elections nationally. So we have colleagues in Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, and this is not a local party. This is a party with national ambitions, because our problems are not only universal globally, but they're definitely universal here. And any city that you go, that we are numerically strong, we're at the bottom of every measurable metric. And the only way to get over that is to engage and provide solutions based on our numbers. So look, we all understand that it's not numbers that make you strong, it's organizational skills. So we have a political vehicle that will give us the organization that we've been asking for. The satellites around that are all of the institutions we have, the educational curriculums, the businesses that we have as a base to contribute financially to a party, the trade union workers who are by and large ignored. If you look at any black, and we use the term politically black, because our politically black organizations get ridden over shotgun. So being politically black may be jumped over with an LGBTQ plus agenda, who are not numerically strong enough to change anything by voting, which is why they're given the microphone. So now when we bring it back to being African Caribbean black, we now have the numbers, but not the voice. We now have a voice to represent us nationally. And if your voice isn't being heard, come to the place where the megaphone is and speak. Convey what you have to say.
What is the Initiative Party strategy for political education of our community to some extent? There's a lot of people out there who say they would never vote, they don't want to get involved in politics, it won't work for you, etc., etc. How do we get around that within the community?
Well, that's where we split it into the various sectors. So in the youth wing, we work with the student unions. This is where people are most passionate about politics, and they got a plethora of platforms and podcasts, and they start to inform each other via having us on and speaking to them. And then they become the ambassadors of that. If you think about how Obama became president, it was with the youth. So you use those who are most politically active in the prime of their life, and you arm them with the tools. So then you've got a very strong youth wing who are educating their peers. Then you go to our highest achievers and our brightest and best, and we start the conversations and debates, speaking at a political level to disseminate political acumen to the masses who follow them. And we understand that. And technology is a huge part in disseminating that political education.
Okay, and I guess I'll round off with this question. How do the Initiative Party tackle the Labour Party's hold, it seems, on the African Caribbean vote that does vote, for example? I mean, at the last election, we saw Grime for Corbyn, and Jeremy Corbyn has seemed to be very well received within our community.
Absolutely.
How would you compete against that sort of that party?
There's no point in competing with a distributor of cloudy water. Look, let's think critically. And if I think critically, I'm going to ask you what I've ever acquired in terms of power and position from you. And if you turn into Scooby-Doo for 30 seconds, then I have to start thinking about self-preservation. So we're not actually competing with the Labour Party because there is no emotional bond anymore. And this is why we don't vote anymore. So the Labour Party do have a black Labour movement, which is the only Labour movement that doesn't represent a particular people, because you have a Jewish Labour movement, an Asian Labour movement, and several other Labour movements. And the black Labour movement, I was actually at their meeting, which is why I'm involved in this process today, because the chair of the black Labour movement, when asked, is this African Caribbean black or politically black? To quote him verbatim, is politically black. Black is elective. You could be white, LGBT, Asian. And that's when I checked out, because I realized that you can't come and articulate that as a chair in the Jewish Labour movement. You can't come and articulate that as a chair of the Asian Labour movement. Try go to South Hall and say Asian is elective. You could be African Caribbean, you could be gay. It's not gonna work. It won't go down in Chinatown, so just stop. We have become apologists, and it is now a problem because our children are suffering. Our children are gonna inherit a Brexit Britain and all of the debt and incumbent problems that will arrive at our door with that. If we say no, we say initiative party. We say self-preservation. We say education, empowerment, and enterprise. Because only by creating enterprise can you create new employment. So if you said there were a dearth of doctors in this country, even if you headhunt, there's still a dearth of doctors in this country. So even if you went and you said you're going to work with the brightest and best, there's still a dearth of enterprise to employ. And then they lack scale. So then you need someone to represent your political interests. The initiative party is what that looks like. Because every time we say, I'm a 21st century Garveyite, I'm going to ask, what does that look like as a photograph? It looks like the initiative party, because we're all taking the initiative together to educate, empower, and create enterprise in order to increase employment, in order to increase attainment, in order to increase wealth. And that's it in a nutshell.
If people want to join the initiative party or get involved, how will they do it?
The marketing will become very prevalent very quickly for people to become fully paid up members, as they would have become fully paid up members of the Labour Party or any other party. All of the unions, student unions, will also be promoting that amongst their peers. The ACSs will be promoting that amongst their peers. And very quickly, you're going to see the domino effect. And just as there was an appetite for the UKIP party and the Brexit party, you will see the exponential growth of the initiative party based on desire.
I'm here with Charles Gordon, a multi-millionaire property developer, who's going to tell us a little bit about his story of how he got from where he started to where he is today.
The initial background, I started in business when I was 19 years old. Overall objective was, let me look for the biggest thing I can buy and sell. When I left school, I was told categorically that I'm unemployable. So as a result of being unemployable,
Why did they tell you that?
I was bad. I got suspended a few times. I wasn't the best behaved child, you know, and it was understandable. And I think, well, bad coupled with outspoken. I didn't follow the rules of the system. I was always a person who would look at the rules and work out my own rules and adopt those. And I think to a degree, their objective within the UK school system is to beat that out of you. But ultimately, those are the ingredients that make you an entrepreneur. And it's testing the rules, it's challenging the rules, it's looking at how you're going to recreate the rules, and ultimately trying to dismantle that system and rebuild it better. And those are the objectives, those are the things that made me go into business, and those are the things that ultimately made me successful in business. Challenging the system, challenging what the convention of it was, and turning it into something different. I think for me, when I started, the overall objective was, I started with nothing. I did my first property deal when I was 19 years old, 18 years old, a friend of mine was driving a Porsche, and I said to him, how did you get that?
Yeah.
And he said to me, what you need to do is you find a property, and then you find a buyer, and if whatever it's worth, if it's worth 50,000, if you buy it for 45,000, then you can make the money in the middle. I was like, okay. So I went away. A week later, I came back with a property and a buyer. I went to all the estate agents. I found a property in Dulwich. It was buying for 43,000 and it would value at 53,000. We did the deal. Took about 6 months. He paid me £1,500 commission. I used that £1,500 commission to open my office, buy my sign above the door and buy my desks and chairs. And then from there, I just expanded and grew and grew and grew. I look at it, I kind of look at life like a video game. So I kind of take it in stages. So we started with lettings and management. Then we moved into property sales. So initially we were making £300 a deal. And then we were making £3,000 a deal. And then we started in property development. Then we were making £30,000 a deal. And then now we're doing, well, £300,000 to £500,000 per deal. I mean, it's just a case of kind of qualifying and moving up each stage, you know. But it's good fun. It's good fun.
I mean, that's amazing to be fair. I mean, nowadays, what does like an average day for you look like as a head of this sort of company?
Oh, okay. So no, I've changed my dynamic.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the issues I had in life, and it is an issue, is, well, for me, it was being it was being content.
Okay.
Because the problem, when I was younger, a friend of mine came to me and she said to me, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to be rich. He said, what do you mean you want to be rich? I said, I want to be rich. She said, don't you want to be comfortable? I said, no, I want to be rich. I didn't even understand what she was talking about. The concept of not being was stupid to me. But I now understand what she was talking about. And the problem is, when you set an objective based around money or anything like that, it's always unattainable. What is rich? When do you have enough? And the question is, you've got to sit down and say to yourself at some stage, enough. And once you reach that place of enough, then you can be happy. But other than that, your success is ultimately your failure, because your constant strive to achieve more will put you in a place where you're never happy with what you've got.
Content over everything. From your melody.
Come, man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
Big up to yourself, man. Thank you for holding the mic the whole time. My arms, I sort of been getting tired. I can't lie. I'm telling you. I'm being talking.